Alright, so you guys might not have seen this coming, but this is a result of me honestly loving adding Dragon Ball Super to the channel. In terms of content, crossover, battles I've done, it's done so well. Even my last Supergirl in the Tournament of Power video did really well. I did that collab with Chuck. If you haven't seen that yet, go check it out. But yeah, so because it's done so well, this matchup crossed my mind not too long ago. It makes sense thematically. It's a battle of ragers. This is Broly from Dragon Ball Super era versus Atrocitus from Post Crisis. I will be drawing on material for Atrocitus from his Green Lantern, I believe, Volume 4 run, where he was first introduced in the 2005 through 2009 section of that run, I believe, including Blackest Night, of course, or Darkest Night, whatever you want to call it. I believe it's Blackest Night. But yeah, anyways, we're going to be drawing from there. I didn't feel that the rest of Post Crisis, which was a few more issues, was really necessary. It covers pretty much everything he brings to the table from Post Crisis. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoy. We will be starting off by introducing Atrocitus and exploring what he brings to the table. I hope you guys enjoy the video. Hit the like button if you haven't subscribed already. Please do. That being said, let's begin, and I hope you enjoy. So starting off, we start with Green Lantern Volume 4, Issue 28. We see here that Atrocitus is locked up in a prison. He has been here for at least centuries, according to the banter occurring in the comic. He says that his rage has led him to discover a means to escape as he seeks to kill the Green Lanterns responsible for this. And towards the end of this exchange, he says the Lantern's name, which is Sinestro. Atrocitus' sector that he lived in at the time, his galactic sector, was known as Sector 666. Sector 666 was the victim of the Manhunter massacre when the Manhunters glitched. So basically, before the Lanterns were a thing, the Guardians of the Universe made android-type beings called the Manhunters that they sent out to protect the universe. This went great for ages. However, at one point they glitched, and this resulted in them trying to eliminate all life, and them doing so in Sector 666, basically killing everyone Atrocitus loved. Now, after this massacre occurred, there was only 5 survivors from this sector. One of them included Atrocitus, who would go on to seek revenge for this horrendous act. Lantern cores at the time, really, it was just green and yellow. At least to those in the DC universe that, viewed everything from a normal sense. That is, they aren't higher beings like the Guardians of the Universe. Now, these new cores that are starting to crop up, like the Red Lantern Corps that Atrocitus leads, potentially their rise, due to the prophecy, scares the Guardians, who then enact lethal force usage from the Green Lanterns. This just shows how potentially powerful Atrocitus is, that beings as strong as the Guardians fear what he could become. Atrocitus, even in his base non-ring version of Atrocitus, was able to mind hacks and psychologically damage a Green Lantern on his own. This is actually the predecessor to Hal Jordan himself, and he was able to get into his mind, which allowed him to get out and get away and break the constructs. Now, before this video, I simply forgot how good he was at that. But going back reviewing Post Crisis, he's very good at mental warfare. Early Hal Jordan, using his ring, was able to travel from Earth trillions of light years to Oa for training in just moments. This is important for scaling later because this is literally untrained Hal doing this speed feat. Ringless Atrocitus showed he was able to perform blood rituals advanced enough to seek out a power source capable of causing Blackest Night. This is awesome. I think the blood magic in DC is pretty cool. Essentially, he makes a sacrifice, and he uses the blood and the sacrifice to look into the future. And if he has enough to do the right sacrifice, he can see your entire past and future. Atrocitus then, of course, like I referenced earlier, leads a rebel cult called the Five Inversions. They live to bring the end to the Guardians of the Universe. Atrocitus plans to achieve this via rituals and sacrifice. He discovers that in the future, via rituals, there is a great blackness even the Guardian's light can't pierce. Atrocitus does not fear this blackness and plans to weaponize it. Atrocitus gets confronted later on by rookie Hal Jordan and Sinestro, his mentor. In this confrontation, Atrocitus showed he was smart enough to make a divining rod. This rod was capable of stealing powers, fundamental powers of the universe, like lantern ring energy. Atrocitus' IQ, creation, and strategy actually shocked Sinestro, who's one of the smarter combatants and tacticians in comics. Even when he saw the divining rod, saw what Atrocitus was capable of and how he was handling himself, he was like, yeah, he's actually a problem when it comes to, actually fighting him as a tactician. He's more than just a raging beast. Also, keep in mind, if you're a little confused about why Sinestro is hanging out with Hal right now, it does time skip throughout this run. That's something you kind of got to deal with Jeff Johns, but his time skipping and things like that is made up for by his amazing storytelling. Atrocitus can withstand recharge Sinestro and Hal Jordan blitzing him. This is him without a ring, by the way, and he was just fine, and he was fighting them off. Atrocitus, of course, eventually gets taken down. When this happens, he gets crucified by constructs made by Sinestro made of green energy light, and this only pisses off Atrocitus. He is an actual beast even without the ring. Atrocitus believes rage is superior in AP and is more useful in battle and warfare than other emotions like fear, because fear is inaction, whereas rage drives you to action. This is an interesting argument, and I want to hear what you guys think in the comments down below. Regardless of which emotion is the strongest in DC via scaling, which emotion presented do you believe should be the strongest just by its principle, but by what it's supposed to mean? Which one do you think is the best? I'm definitely interested in hearing what you guys have to say. Lanterns make cases for their emotions all the time. You've heard cases in my Sinestro video for the yellow light. You just heard one for the red light. Let me know what you think. Atrocitus' progression in power and control over the red energy was ahead of schedule to even the projections of former Guardian of the Universe Ganthet. This progression and power actually does worry Ganthet, who's quite formidable in his own right. Atrocitus, with his blood rituals and power, was able to bypass the mental defenses of Sinestro and find out about his one weakness. This weakness was his daughter. So, if given enough time with flesh, blood, and sacrifice, he can perform rituals that can even break the will of Sinestro. It's ridiculous. Of course, before superfans get worried, remember he kinda needs time to do this, so it's a little hard to just randomly pull out a blood ritual in the middle of a fight. Atrocitus Fire, when he uses this, his blood vomit, cannot be doused by even the likes of Saint Walker and his allies. Blue Lantern Saint casually can amp base lanterns multiple times, but his energy and power is useless against the power of Atrocitus' Rage Vomit. Atrocitus found overwhelming Hal's willpower and corrupting his rage in easy tasks. This occurs when he gets into a scrap with Hal. During this major event, major battle, rage starts to fill his heart a little bit. It's natural. When you're in battle, rage is natural. It's hard to ignore. When this happens, because of his empathic abilities, Atrocitus immediately picks up on the fact that this rage is occurring, and he instantly converts even a lantern with the willpower of Hal Jordan to being a red lantern. His red rage fusion, if you do manage to clean it, has to not only be cleansed on a cellular level, you literally have to recharge, rechange every single cell in your body, plus your blood, plus your organs. After that, you have to be cleansed on a spiritual level. It's a crazy process. Hal Jordan, now amped with blue and green energy, does like a self-destruct move point blank on Atrocitus. While it does hurt Atrocitus, it fails to put him down. This is a very impressive durability feat. Guardians who fear Atrocitus have had power and been protectors since the concept of light itself came to be. Issue 47, we saw that Atrocitus had his heart ripped out by a Black Lantern. This is during the Darkest Night, Blackest Night saga. When this fight occurred, for a little bit of context before this, everybody was struggling against Black Lanterns. Every other Lantern Corps even. When Atrocitus got ran up on and his heart ripped out by the Black Lantern in a move that literally had killed other Lantern Corps members, it just pissed off Atrocitus. It didn't actually hurt him. Atrocitus goes on to completely rip apart Black Lanterns. Not only this, these Black Lanterns were former Corps members to Larfleeze to Orange Lantern, and these Black Lanterns had Larfleeze running scared, and Atrocitus casually hawked them down and tore them apart. This led, of course, to issue 48, a clash between Atrocitus and Larfleeze. This is occurring because the orange, pure greed light that Larfleeze possesses is insanely powerful because he's the only one that possesses it, so it's not diluted. It hasn't been passed around to a bunch of people, which dilutes the emotion. It dilutes the power itself. His pure power still remains. That's what Atrocitus wants. And I was surprised, but he pulled up on Larfleeze, and he was actually pushing him around a little bit and able to get in some hits on him. His blood vomit then one-shots a platoon of fallen orange constructs turned Black Lanterns. They didn't scare him at all. When they ran up, they got blasted, and he easily took them down. We see later on Yellow Lantern Sinestro, Green Lantern Hal Jordan hanging out. Then we see Atrocitus completely tear through Fear construct chains and rock Sinestro. Then tell Sinestro, hey, they weren't scared of the other things going on in the universe. They were scared of me and my rage. Also, in one of the funniest moments in this run, he has a hilarious reaction to essentially a Black Lantern abortion pulled on a Black Lantern baby. He watched, I believe it was Mara. She got transformed into a Red Lantern. She gets pulled up on by someone that loved her, a Black Lantern. They're real good at using emotions from your past life to really mess with you. He shows her their baby, and she said, I never wanted a baby, and blast the baby and the dad. And Atrocitus baby basically looked at her and was like... Anyways, moving on. So, we see eventually
we got that strap on you.
Spectre is taken by the Black Lanterns and becomes a Black Lantern. And the Red Lanterns assist in this battle against Spectre, and he's able to even rip into Black Lantern Spectre somewhat. It looked like he was doing some damage, but it's hard to tell. He feels the rage of others and senses it too. He can even sense, on the fundamental level, the rage of Spectre, who's God's rage. He also believes Spectre is the entity of his emotion. He's wrong about this. Spectre is not, but it was pretty interesting. Then, in the most impressive feat in this run from up to this point by Atrocitus, he jumps on Black Lantern Spectre and turns him into a Red Lantern briefly. While this was happening, this eventually gets negged when Spectre realized he was God's rage, not the emotion rage. There's two different things. There's the emotional spectrum, and then there's a higher level of emotion that is literally God tier. And God's rage is simply not the same as mortal rage, emotional, sentient existence rage. Still, being able to briefly control and channel God's rage is absolutely wild. Issue 53. It's implied Atrocitus was capable of and was about to launch an attack potentially capable of killing the Guardians and the Green Lantern Corps. Atrocitus then shows towards the end of issue 53 that he has developed the ability to create full-on constructs. Now this is very important because before this, Red Lanterns weren't shown to be able to do constructs, mostly because they're mindless brutes, but he is not one and he figured it out. And similar to a Green Lantern, using constructs really adds to your versatility. And at this time, he also starts beating up multiple different colored lanterns. This is when we see Lobo eventually pull up and say, "Yo, I am here to collect a bounty on the head of Atrocitus." This is happening while Atrocitus is with other lanterns. Lobo jumps him. They scrap and he's doing fine. He's physically matching post-crisis Lobo. Lobo goes for the kill because he's getting the bounty. Lands a killing shot on Atrocitus, which doesn't do anything. Now, while this is impressive because this same Lobo moments later gets attacked by all the lanterns and it doesn't do anything, like he kind of jokes about it, Atrocitus still tanked a killing blow, and we see Atrocitus is the one that had hired Lobo in order to gain the trust of the other lanterns and be manipulative. So this means he held back on Lobo and took the lethal shot on purpose, so we don't know, he might have been able to do some serious work against Lobo. We're not quite sure. Anyways, let's go over a summary of what we've seen up to this point from Atrocitus, because at this point I feel we've given a great showing of what post-crisis Atrocitus brings to the table. Now, in summary, Atrocitus is perhaps one of the most underappreciated tacticians and combatants in DC Comics. You see, becoming a Red Lantern requires literal sacrifice on multiple levels, both physical and spiritual. This includes basically being reduced to a mindless, raging, primal force. Atrocitus retains his intellect while simultaneously harnessing a rage far beyond his fellow Red Lanterns. Atrocitus in post-crisis, even before he obtains his ring, was casually trillions of times FTL, as we saw untrained Hal move this distance in just seconds from Earth to Oa, and ringless Atrocitus was able to fight Lanterns and even Sinestro, and even blitz them. Atrocitus significantly increases after this thanks to the use of a ring. Atrocitus is consistently relative to the speedsters in DC, including Lobo, who throttled Flash, and Hal Jordan, who can keep up with speedsters as well. He was capable of going to war with multiple Lantern Corps and do just fine, even undermining characters like Sinestro at some point. He had decent mind hacks. If he gets your blood, he can potentially perform rituals. He can spit rage vomit that easily incinerated Black Lanterns that even scared Larfleeze. He can regen from lethal blows and organ damage instantly. He feeds off rage, gets amped by rage, has constructs, energy manip, and shields. Even before his ring, Atrocitus was Lantern level. Finally, he has incredible soul hacks that allow him to convert Ragers to his cause, even temporarily converting God's Rage, Spectre, who was also being controlled by the Black Lanterns. And when he did this, he turned him into a Red Lantern under the control briefly of Atrocitus. This is wild. The leader of the DC Rage Club truly is a scary foe for anybody. Now we have gotten the GOAT of the Red Lanterns out of the way, we have to address the character on the other side of the battle, which is Broly. Broly, of course, is a legendary Saiyan made famous from his 2 movies and signature freakouts. The legendary Saiyan was born on planet Vegeta years ago. However, problems arose when Broly was revealed to have an OD power level. Because of his absurd potential, Vegeta's father decided that it was best for everybody, literally the entire Saiyan race, if a being of that power level did not exist on their planet. Of course, there is also the problem of competition. As a warrior race, the king had to consider the fact that Broly would likely fold the shit out of his son Vegeta every step of the way. Like, it was a really big power gap. So, it was a 2-pronged decision to get rid of the baby Broly, and he was sent off to the wild planet of Vampa, beginning his journey as a legendary Super Saiyan. Growing up, The rage and power of Broly was honed on the treacherous lands he now walked. Cast away from his former society with a few others like Paragus, young Broly learned combat and survival by battling local creatures and beasts. Kid Broly still had his great ape tail, and he could transform. However, his power level soon surpassed his adult teachers and family, and his tail had to be removed before he was too much to stop. This insane growth did not stop in his youth, as his ape form may be gone, but he learned to absorb that form into himself. When adult Broly arrives on the scene in the movie, what is important to note for my comic fans here that don't really follow Super or didn't see the Super movie, Broly showed up and was kinda trash in the beginning. However, this does not make Broly bad or inconsistent. Isolated Broly before that simply had not had the proper training and development to take advantage of his insane potential. When he does show up, the potential almost manifests instantly after the first few licks, of course. Broly shows off adaptation not in just power, but combative prowess. With each hit thrown, Broly literally gets stronger and faster, and more skilled. It did not take long at all for Broly to begin changing forms, and Goku and Vegeta began to be forced to change as well. Soon, Red Goku was not even enough to do anything to Broly. Keep in mind, Goku is beyond the point of when regular Goku absorbed God Ki into his base. Even in his baseline, base form Goku should be well above Universal at this point in the story. I mean, if you're going to argue that, you might as well just click off the video. Anyways, add on top his God transformation, not to mention all the 7 billion other transformations for Goku. And even his God Red form at this point is massively above Universal, given the first one could casually shake the Universal punches. The rate of growth for Broly during fights is quite alarming. Technically, if you look at the fights and his progression, Broly was honestly getting multiple times stronger every second. The level of growth and the speed it occurs makes it hard to keep up with for most opponents, as it is quickly over since he can create such a large power gap rather quickly. The rate of growth for Broly in terms of skill is just as fast as it was for power. I think the best example of this is Broly vs Vegeta in the beginning. Vegeta casually goes on defense, evading every barbaric punch thrown by Broly. However, Broly soon makes adjustments as a fighter. This results in him anticipating Vegeta and tagging him now with precision shots. This is a great ability to have, as it can also help change your fighting style mid-fight, making you unpredictable for your opponent. It would be Vegeta that brings about a massive surge in power for Broly. This is explained to be the result of Broly having ape power within him, but not having the ape form externally anymore. Vegeta powers up in God Red and temporarily folds Broly. Broly wakes up raging, activating that weird ape wrathful power mode. With the fat amp, Broly quickly hits the multiversal ranges with multipliers, as Red God form will no longer cut it in the scrap. This pissed off, vengeful, angry Broly easily contends with the likes of both Blue Goku and Blue Vegeta. Take note, at this point not only is speed matched, but Broly made up years, if not decades, of technically fighting skill difference in just minutes. Most opponents should aim for an early win against Broly, given that his evolution mid-fights and unpredictability makes him really hard to keep up with and stop. Because it's Dragon Ball, Broly has to get yet more transformations. This occurs when someone he cares about close to him dies, Paragus. The murder of Paragus allows Broly to unlock his Mangekyo Sharingan. Just kidding. What he does do though, is he does unlock Super Saiyan. Besides Keflo, I truly can't remember a fighter in DBS growing this fast in all categories. Maybe you can make an argument for Goku Black being in that kind of the same category, but it's still, his power growth in the movie was just wild. Not only does Super Saiyan Broly fight Vegeta and Goku, he does so when both are in Blue God mode. These forms should be, at worst, like I mentioned before, multiversal. I'll give you low multi, but I think that's kind of pushing it, and it is not a problem for Broly to deal with both of these characters. Broly's power-ups also can knock back these characters. It becomes evident that Goku and Vegeta will need another way to put down Broly. In the ass whooping of the century, Broly gets to put the hands on Frieza. Frieza, even when he transforms and is Golden Frieza, all that, it does not matter. Frieza, period, got slapped around by Broly. This bullying session went on for literally an hour. Frieza is a character that, although he is an asshole, he is quite formidable, having helped his universe win the Tournament of Power. Still, this didn't matter as he got dragged like a bitch by Broly. For those uncomfortable with Broly scaling so high right now, just remember a Goku quote from the movie. Goku stated he believed Broly may have surpassed the raw power of Beerus himself. Beerus is a god of destruction who scales to multiversal being thousands of times above characters that can destroy a universe in Dragon Ball casually. Gogeta pulls up to fade Broly, relieving Frieza of his job as a glorified punching bag. Gogeta pressures Super Saiyan Broly early, and the speedy combos were simply too much early on for this version of Broly. Things looked iffy for Broly as Gogeta even began beating him down like a bully. Broly, as proven by now, is simply not a fan of taking L's. Ass beatings to Broly literally tend to not last long, giving his adaptation. Broly now achieves a new form. This is the form of Legendary Super Saiyan. This is where Broly decides he is going to do his best Superboy Prime impression as he now re-engages the two Saiyans. The battle ensues and reality becomes a victim of the mayhem. As Broly pummeled Gogeta, reality began to break. There is a quote to help describe why exactly the brawl had such effects. It describes Super Saiyan Gogeta and Super Saiyan Broly's energy as being so powerful that it surpassed or broke the boundaries of the universe, which transported them to another dimension. When Broly slams Gogeta around, we see more reality shattering, and it is described as something like Broly smashing Gogeta against the walls of space. When they exit the dimension, it's described as them crumbling the dimension. Their powers were too intense and too much for the universe to handle. So, literally my interpretation of the event, and based on some things that were pulled up later and stated later, it's pretty obvious the power was simply too much for that at least version of space-time to contain, and they broke through to an alternate dimension. That's quite impressive if you're literally throwing someone around and breaking reality. The ending actually isn't as climatic as you'd think. Goku and Broly end the beef before it gets too out of hand. Broly's given supplies to help ease life on his new home. Overall, in just a brief period of time, we saw the most ridiculous power surge in Dragon Ball history as the legendary Saiyan tore it up. In conclusion, Super Broly was one of the most dangerous characters in the mythos. He easily has multiversal AP and gets dozens of times stronger in just moments during combat. He has skill and power reactive adaptation. He has insane energy manip and ki blast to devastate opponents in battlefields. In his legendary Saiyan form, his power is quite literally too much for time-space. Broly truly is a raging Saiyan legend, one worthy of being named among the gods of the verse. So, looking at both sides, how do I think they stack up? Well, looking at AP, Legendary Saiyan, obviously I think his punches, regular punches, he's just throwing way harder than Atrocitus normally is. However, Atrocitus' Rage Vomit is absurd, the way it tore apart Black Lanterns like it was nothing, especially given they were fallen Larfleeze constructs. And he was able to claw away at Black Lantern, Spectre, things like that, fight multiple Lanterns. He can definitely hold his own. Now, speed-wise, given he scales to the speedsters in DC, casually scales above a version of Hal Jordan that was trillions of times FTL. I give a slight edge to Atrocitus, but the fact that, you know, homeboy Broly can break through time, space, I think, and he should scale to characters that have at least inaccessible speed. I don't think in a lot of cases Atrocitus outright blitzes. I think he's a little faster, but Broly can definitely hold his own, and Broly's reaction, adaptation, would certainly, I believe, allow him to start closing the speed gap. Now, durability, both can take a hit, both have really good regen. We've literally seen Atrocitus take killing shots and it did nothing to him. So both are incredibly hard to put down and they scale to their AP. Hacks wise, I mean, both have energy manip. One of them shoots vomit that literally breaks through not even dead, they're just darkness basically. They have no soul. He tears through the Black Lanterns, tears through Hal Jordan's defenses, knocks around Sinestro. All these things, he's able to mind hacks you, track you through space, track you through rage, use rage to amp himself, all these things. Broly also has plenty of combative abilities like key manip, key sense. He's able to amp himself via rage, amp himself via transformations, and get skill and power adaptation. I mean, it's just they bring so much together to the table in terms of what they can do with their power sets that I think the way they both utilize it is very good and complements their styles well. So I'd probably call that a tie with a slight edge maybe to Atrocitus because he already knows more about his versatility, whereas Broly is still learning. So when I look at all this, I think especially if we let Broly start off in Legendary Saiyan, it's going to be really hard for Atrocitus early on. But what I think happens in this video that's actually a first, I believe, on my channel is I don't think this fight would end normally. I think what would happen is Atrocitus, with his incredible sense of empathy, would sense the internal potential and the rage of Broly, and during this fight, at some point, he would be able to turn Broly into a Red Lantern. He was able to even temporarily turn Black Lantern Spectre, the Wrath of God, the Rage of God, into a Red Lantern. He for a little bit of time manipulated God's wrath, God's rage as his own. So I think that's what would happen. I don't think there would be a clear winner. If that's taken off the table, Broly could maybe knock him out early, but I think if they start off base to base, Atrocitus would win if we take away what I mentioned earlier. But I kind of want to go with what I mentioned earlier because I think it makes more honest sense. And with that in mind, if you guys want to see a what if Broly was a Red Lantern, let me know. Anyways, it's been your boy YFV. I loved researching this battle. I love doing super crossovers. Like I said, the fans are amazing when they come view my content. So that's been a lot of fun. Let me know what you thought about this video and hit the like button, comment down below. If you want to see that Broly as a Red Lantern in DC Comics, what would it be like if Atrocitus brought him in? I would definitely be down to make that. Anyways, it's been your boy, your favorite villain, and I will see y'all later. Peace.